Hello again and welcome to the last of our lessons on the book of Acts. The title of this week's lesson is This Changes Everything. The Greco-Roman world of the first century had a variety of religious faiths and practices, and people were, generally speaking, willing to engage and listen to new religious ideas. Religion was rarely considered a private matter. It was often discussed and debated in public places. Those wishing to effectively share their message needed to know just a little bit about the customs and the core beliefs of the people to whom they were speaking. In our first lesson, we considered how Peter and Paul did just this, how they tailored their message, their gospel message, to those to whom they were speaking. This week, the stories that we are going to consider will go just a step further. We'll consider not only the audience, but we'll also consider how the Christian message had public or political ramifications for people's lives, and how those who heard this message responded. One of the main themes of Jesus' preaching in the Gospels is the kingdom of God, sometimes called the kingdom of heaven in Matthew. Matt Skinner helpfully describes the kingdom of God as the state of affairs in which God's gracious intentions for humanity and all creation finally become actualized. That new reality begins to emerge in Jesus' presence and activity here on earth. The kingdom of God is not some far-off reality, but begins to emerge in the life and ministry of Jesus. And to the extent that the church continues to carry on Jesus' work and ministry, the kingdom of God continues to be revealed, continues to emerge here and now in our day too. All of this means that Jesus' message is political, that it has to do with the way in which we organize our lives together. A quick word about the word political. I don't mean political in the sense of partisanship. Politics or political comes from the Greek word polis, meaning city, like as in Minneapolis, the city of water. Mini means water in the Sioux language. Politics has to do with the ways in which we organize our shared life, our public life together. And Jesus has quite a bit to say about this. Love your neighbor as yourself, for example. Or blessed are the poor, but woe to you who are rich. Or give us today our daily bread. We should be careful not to draw an overly simplistic connection between the Bible and the politics of our day, as though the Bible has clear-cut, ready-made answers for all of our political issues. Acts does not imagine a world in which Christians have the kind of political power that we do today. Christianity was an illegal religion in the Roman Empire and remains so until the conversion of Constantine in the 4th century. Moreover, what we mean by politics or nation or state don't map well onto the reality of the 1st century world. Our concept of nationhood or statehood and the political machinations that enable them are products of Enlightenment thinking. In this day of fierce partisanship and distrust between peoples of different political stripes, it's worth remembering that faithful Christians can be found in all slices of the political spectrum in this country and around the world. It's also worth remembering that Christians can faithfully reach different conclusions about the issues of the day. Both of these statements reinforce the idea that faith is not just a private matter, but that Jesus' message about the kingdom of God really does have implications for how we organize our communities and for the kinds of economic, social, and cultural policies we will pursue. In short, the gospel is political. As I mentioned above, Acts never imagines Christians with the kind of political power that we have today. Nor does Acts portray its main characters as seeking out that kind of power. But the message of the early Christians does present a challenge to business as usual in the Roman Empire. Rome demanded loyalty to the emperor and to Roman values, and it expected people to adhere to the social system that held Roman society together. the emperor was revered as a god, and so to proclaim Jesus as the one true Lord is a political statement. That proclamation, coupled with the fact that the way Christians live in the world was at odds with Roman traditions and practices, these two things meant that the church was a threat to the Roman way of life and to Roman values. Unsurprisingly, then, those who benefit from the status quo, those whose values are being challenged, are often the first to detect the real-world implications of the Christian message. My favorite accusation hurled against the apostles is that they are people turning the world upside down. I can't hear this charge without being reminded of the song sung by Mary in Luke's Gospel, the Magnificat, while she is visiting her cousin Elizabeth. In this song, Mary praises God for doing just that, for turning the world upside down. God, Mary says, scatters the proud, brings down the powerful, lifts up the lowly, fills the hungry, and sends the rich away empty. The charge in Acts is made against Paul and Silas in Thessalonica. In addition to being accused of turning the world upside down, they are also accused of acting contrary to the decrees of the emperor by saying that there is another king named Jesus. Although Paul and Cyrus never encouraged their hearers to go out and overthrow the emperor, the charges leveled against them are essentially true. And what's more, the crowd goes after Jason, a local believer who provided hospitality to Paul and Silas while they were in Thessalonica. One of the hallmarks of the early church, its hospitality, is being used against them. The crowd reasons that by going after Jason and by going after the hospitality that he shows, they can sow mistrust or fear into the community and thereby undermine it. The world has changed since the days of the early church. No longer is Christianity a small, obscure sect with minor influence in the world. It is instead one of the world's largest religions with overwhelming power to influence the world. This week, as we explore the stories in Acts, we can learn not only about how the early church shared its message within an often hostile environment, but we can also reflect on how we might most faithfully use the power we have today in economic, social, and cultural circles in order to continue to bear witness to Jesus. I find Matt Skinner's comments helpful. He writes, "A commitment to Jesus Christ is supposed to influence how we live in the world. A person's Christian faith and eagerness to see thy kingdom come should make a difference in how that person uses money, votes in elections, raises children, understands obligations to his or her neighbors, and knows when it's time to walk away from a job or some other requirement. It's not that there is only one Christian way to do these things, but our faith is meant to inform all aspects of our lives. As our time together comes to an end, I want to just take a minute to say thank you for joining me in this journey through Acts. I've really enjoyed working on this and putting this Bible study together, and I hope that you have enjoyed your time in Acts as well. At the very beginning of the study, we looked at the opening verse of Acts and learned that it could be translated, "In the first book, Theophilus, I wrote about all that Jesus began to do and teach." Throughout Acts, we have seen just how Jesus' ministry has continued in and through the life and ministry of the apostles and the early believers. Acts ends with the notice that the gospel continues to be preached unhindered. And it's ongoing today. Today, the gospel continues to be proclaimed through your words and deeds. Jesus' work continues through your hands and through mine. Thanks be to God.